सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ओम शांति शांति शांति। ओम भद्रं कर्णेभिः शृणुयाम देवाः भद्रं पश्येमाक्षभिर्यजत्राः स्थिरैरङ्गैस्तुष्टुवागुंसस्तनूभिः व्यशेम देवहितं यदायुः। स्वस्ति न इन्द्रो वृद्धश्रवाः स्वस्ति नः पूषा विश्ववेदाः स्वस्ति नस्तार्क्ष्यो अरिष्टनेमिः स्वस्ति नो बृहस्पतिर्दधातु। ओम शांति शांति शांति। समस्तजनकल्याणे निरतं करुणामयं नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरम्। Salutations to all of you. So today is the third day and our topic is peace through clarity. Yesterday we had seen 4 aspects of the mind because of which the mind is difficult to control. One is chanchal, that is fickle or restless. Second is pramathi, very, very impulsive. Third is balavad, extremely attached, strongly attached. Dridham, unyielding. Even if you try to pull it back from its attachment, again it goes. So this was explained by Arjun as his difficulty to control the mind in the 6th chapter of the Gita. And Bhagavan says, yes, no doubt the mind is difficult to control, but through abhyas or practice and through vairagya, it can be controlled. So abhyas is the solution for the first two. Fickleness and the impulsiveness of the mind can be controlled through abhyas. And yesterday we saw the aspect of abhyas. To hold on to a single chain of thought to the exclusion of everything else, that is the one abhyas that one has to do. In that, puja can help, so that I think only of the Lord. Generally our mind goes out through the senses. And it is very difficult for that mind to become quiet when it has been withdrawn from all the senses. Either it goes into sleep or it starts wandering. Its own memories of the past start coming up. So it needs a field because it is used to going out. Extrovertedness is its nature. So in the beginning, even if I start doing mantra japa, it becomes difficult sometimes to focus on that mantra. Hence, Ramana Maharshi also advises pujanam japa chintanam kramat. This is the order in which one can move. If you start with a puja, many people think that it's just a ritual and why the puja we should do and what is the point of a puja. But it is such a beautiful way to engage the entire personality. The eyes want to see something nice. So see the form of the Lord. The ears want to hear the chanting, hear the stotrams. The tongue wants to speak, then do the chanting. The tongue wants to taste, so have the prasad. The touch, use the flowers. So all the five senses are arrested and they are made to think only of the Lord. And when I keep doing that puja, the image of the Lord is imprinted on my mind so deeply. So from the external puja, when I start doing regularly, I do every day 20 minutes of puja or 10 minutes of puja I sit, see the form of the Lord, do the abhisheka, do the archana, offer the agarbatti, light a lamp. All these steps when they are done, they leave an impression on the mind. Slowly from that external puja, our culture says you should start doing manasik puja. The entire puja you do mentally. There is a whole Shiva Manasa puja also. Ratnai kalpitamasanam himajalaihi snanam cha divyambaram. So you are imagining mentally that Bhagavan Shiva is in front of me sitting on an asan which is embedded with various diamonds. And I'm doing the abhisheka, there's Ganga Jal, so many things. One imagines the entire puja, one visualizes that mentally. That mental visualization again is the strength for the mind. So it doesn't start going into the memories, it doesn't get out into the sense pleasures. It learns to be with itself. So when one starts doing that mental puja with complete focus, then slowly one starts the japa. And yesterday we saw how a mantra can be used and how that japa can be very, very powerful means to make the mind quiet. So this is about the abhyas, that regularly when I do this every day, I train the mind to be single pointed. So the fickleness of the mind, the impulsiveness of the mind, impulsively I get angry, lusty, greedy. Whenever that impulse comes up, I can use the mantra. And we also saw about abhyas, that abhyas of single pointedness, doing one thing at a time is very important. The more we do multitasking, the more the mind is divided, dissipated. So let me do one thing at a time, so that the thought flow slows down. And when the thought flow slows down, I have a better grip on the mind, my decisions are better, I have a better grip on life. Otherwise the mind is very disturbed. So that way, three things we have seen in abhyas. One is to do one thing at a time during the day, to spend 10-15 minutes in exclusive sitting, where I withdraw the mind quietly and focus on one chain of thought or a single thought, which is a mantra. And we also saw that we should drop this habit of procrastination, because that again makes the mind disturbed. Fourth aspect of abhyas is that one must do the practice of being in one's own swadharma. Bhagavan tells Arjun in the Gita, he wanted to run away from the battlefield. He did not want to do his duty. And he said, it is better that I seek arms and live in the forest rather than fighting these Kauravas and killing them. In fact, it is better if they kill me. To that extent, Arjun had become weak. He was appearing as though he has a lot of vairagya. a lot of detachment. And then he wants to go away into the forest and live like a mendicant. And Bhagavan tells him clearly there that Swadharme nidhanam shreyah paradharmo bhayavaha. That paradharma will create a lot of fear, anxiety. It is not natural to you. So don't go into paradharma. Paradharma means that for which I am not made, which is not my temperament. So if I find what is my temperament and I stick to that, then there is a lot of peace and harmony within my personality. If I try to imitate somebody, if I try to do something for which I am not made, I am just putting a false mask, that creates the disturbance. So in management they say, if you want happiness for an hour, you take a nap. If you want happiness for a day, you go for a picnic. If you want happiness for a week, you go on a vacation. If you want happiness for a month, you get married. If you want happiness for a year, you inherit wealth. But if you want happiness forever, then do what you love and love what you do. So if I do what I really love, here this doesn't mean that whatever I love, Swamiji, I love eating, so I keep on eating. I love music, so I keep on listening to music. Do what you love means what is natural to you, what is your temperament, doing which you can forget your own self. You get so absorbed in that work. In that field, you can contribute the best to the society. If money was not your compulsion, that is what you would do your whole life. There are many such ways by which one can know what is one's Swadharma. And if one is able to find that and live by that Swadharma, mind will not be disturbed. Arjun thought that he was ready for renunciation, but he was not. So Bhagavan tells him clearly that your Swadharma, you are a Kshatriya by temperament, you are having that quality of a leader, and you have so much of Rajas in you that even if you go to the forest, you can't sit quietly. You will start killing the animals there. You will start hunting there. Because that's your temperament. So much of Rajas is there. So if I go into Paradharma, today so many people choose their careers based on such influences that my parents wanted me to take this up. All my friends are taking this, so I will also take this. Or this is the most fashionable thing to do. This field has a lot of scope, Swamiji, so I'm going to enter into it. The most important criteria to choose must be what is my Swadharma? What is my natural temperament? That, when I identify and work with that, there will be a lot of peace. If I don't do that, no matter how much I put my effort in, my mind will not be happy. There are so many people who take up a certain field, let us say medicine. They are not made for that medicine. As you saw, in some time back, there was a movie called Three Idiots, right? Now, the moment the child is born, there is a seal on that child. This guy will become an engineer. This guy will become a doctor. Now, who decides this fate? He has not decided on his own. He has not even got that opportunity to find out what is his temperament. So many people are like that, and then one struggles. Then mind is disturbed. One starts feeling low. One feels I'm incapable, I'm a failure. All these difficulties come to us. Why? Because I'm not in the right field. If I'm in the right field, I can find the right field. If I'm on the wrong field, let me see how I can gradually shift to the right field. There will be a lot of peace. You know the secret of success? Today, one of the most common things that people say is that Swamiji, stress is very necessary. There is something called good stress. In psychology, they call it as eustress. E-U-S-T-R-E-S-S. Eustress is called good stress. And bad stress is distress. So they say that good stress is necessary, Swamiji, because it will push us to perform. So if there is an exam and I am stressed out, that is good, because then at least I am going to study. And suppose the child is not stressed out, then the parent is definitely stressed out. That why is this fellow not stressed? How will he perform? From where will his motivation come? So under the influence of various things, we have come to believe that stress is necessary to perform in life. But our culture says you don't need stress to perform in life. What you need is inspiration. You are inspired by something, you will just go ahead and perform. You don't need to be stressed out, you don't need to be tired, you don't need to be pushed unnaturally. I am so inspired from within. There was one thin robber, very thin fellow. He stole something and he was running, and there was a very healthy policeman who was chasing that robber. And the robber ran, and he managed to escape. So they asked the policeman that fellow was so thin, so weak, and you are so healthy, and yet that fellow managed to run away. What a shame on you. He said, look, I run for my pay. He was running for his life, so he has higher inspiration. So he ran. So you can work for your pay, or you can work out of inspiration. If I have that inner inspiration, my mind is at peace, creative ideas come, I do so many great things, I achieve great things, and I know I have no stress. I have enjoyed the process. So abhyas of being in Swadharma is very important. Not only in career, but even as a person, what I am, who I am, have I been able to accept myself as I am at peace then. Many times we are waiting for approval from people, recognition from people, praise from people. If they say that you are good, then. And they don't say many times. Then I am disturbed. I put so much of effort and dressed up myself so beautifully and went into a party. Nobody gave me a compliment. Finished. Mind is disturbed. If you dressed up and you are so beautiful, if you love yourself as you are, you have accepted yourself as you are, why do we need somebody else's stamp of approval? We don't need. Today so much of conflict in relationships is because I can't be who I am. I'm always pretending. I'm always imitating. I'm always putting a false mask. I'm always doing things to please other people, which I know internally I don't want to do. Why? Because I have not found that anchoring in myself. So if I am a seeker, if I have that attitude that I am a seeker, and for a seeker, one of the most important quality is being straightforward, having integrity. What I am, that I am. Where I have to improve, I have to improve. There is no question about that. There is not complacency. The very meaning of the word Arjun is that. What is Arjun? Rijutvat Arjuna. One who is very straightforward. Who doesn't pretend, who doesn't hide, who doesn't put up a false mask. In the first chapter of the Gita, you see the character analysis is so beautiful. Duryodhan has so much of fear inside because he is doing the wrong things. And he has completely done so much of adharma that his entire inner strength is completely gone. Lot of fear in his mind. And he needs an outlet, he needs a release. He needs to be free from that. He goes to his own teacher, but he is not able to admit that, see, I am scared, I am nervous, I am anxious. There is so much of fear in my mind. Not only he is not able to admit that, he goes and taunts his own teacher and comes back, saying that what a teacher you are. Look at your own disciples now standing against you and fighting. You were such a fool to train them. That is what happens when I am something else inside and something else outside. Arjun felt so much of dejection, depression, and he did not have any false ego any pretension that, I'm sitting amidst both the armies and what both of them are going to say, and he is the greatest warrior, and look at this fellow, now he is sitting down and crying. He did not have any such false ego. He had that difficulty, he surrendered to Sri Krishna and he said that I don't know what to do. Dharma sammudha chetaha. I have become completely deluded. Karpanya dosho pahata svabhava. And with tears in his eyes, he was sitting there at the feet of Sri Krishna. That is called being straightforward. And you don't have to open up in front of everybody. Where you need to, you have to open up. That is straightforwardness. I don't have to pretend. Pretension is a very big cause of stress in the mind. Peace comes when I am who I am. So with discretion we learn to open up in front of the teacher, in front of the Lord. What are my difficulties? I pour out. There was one man who was running, another man was chasing him. So the third person caught the second man and he said, hello, why are you chasing him? He said, I just asked him a simple question, how are you? And he gave his sad story for 45 minutes and bored me to death. And now when it is my turn, he is running away. So being straightforward doesn't mean that anybody who is there, you catch them, tell them all your shok stava and all that, you don't need to do. But I have to have that acceptance of myself as I am. That this is who I am. With my strengths, with my weaknesses, I am well aware of this is what I am. I don't have to pretend. I can learn so many things which I don't know. Why should I pretend? So many people have such amount of ego. Suppose you ask them, sir, where is this place? If they don't know, they can say, no, I don't know. But they will not say, I don't know, because that's the ego. You go straight, then take a left, then take a right, and again take a right, and go left, and again take a right. And that man who is there, he will follow that and reach somewhere else only. But they will not say, I don't know. These are all disintegrity. So peace of mind comes. I have to do the abhyas that at every point in time, am I true to myself? Am I who I am, or am I pretending? It is like this, a child who is there. A child is playing and doing whatever it has to do. But the moment the child feels that mommy is watching, immediately something happens. Suddenly the whole behavior of the child changes. Same thing happens to many of us. The moment we come out of our private realm into the public space, a lot of pretension comes inside. So putting that false image is a cause of disturbance. Peace comes when I accept myself as who I am. So that abhyas of being who you are, being in your own swadharma, not pretending, not imitating, not comparing, that brings a lot of peace. So two aspects of the mind, restlessness and impulsiveness, can be overcome by practice of single-pointedness, doing one thing at a time, focusing on one's own breath, avoiding procrastination, and practicing swadharma. Now we come to the second aspect, the mind which is very strongly attached and unyielding, pramathi and balavadridham. So the solution for that Bhagavan gives is vairagya. For fickleness and impulsiveness, he said abhyas, and for balavadridham, he said vairagyena cha grihyate. So what is that vairagya? Yesterday we saw. So vairagya is not something which is limited only to a few people. Today we will see different aspects of vairagya. First aspect is that everyone seeks pleasure, seeks enjoyment. We want to be happy in life. Vairagya is not being miserable, unhappy, away from sense enjoyments. Because many people think like that. Vairagya means you go away into the forest, eat some roots and grass and fruits, don't take bath for many days, you have a long jata, and you are sitting quietly below a tree. Kya ho gaya? Vairagya ban gaya. Vairagya is absence of hankering for pleasure. That is one meaning of vairagya. The craving for pleasure that is there, the absence of that craving is called vairagya. It is not non-enjoyment of pleasures. It is intelligently rising above the pleasure so that the craving is not there. Anyone sitting here will have a craving for Barbie doll. Barbie doll. You know, I want a Barbie doll. I will play with a Barbie doll. We don't have the craving because we have risen above it. Played with it, risen above it, no more craving for it. If required, I may even play with it with my child. But from inside, there is no hankering for it. There is no disappointment that if it is not there, what will happen? So that state where when I enjoy as a master. That's what our great Rishi said. Enjoy the world, but let not the world enjoy you. You eat the food, let not the food eat you. You drink the drink, let not the drink drink you. Meaning you enjoy as a master, not as a slave. Not as a victim, that without this I can't be happy, I need this for my happiness. That state of mind where I have enjoyed various things and I have seen for myself how limited they are, and I have lifted myself to a higher state, where I no more hanker after them because I have a higher purpose in life. That state is called as vairagya. What disturbs the peace of mind is the fanciful imaginations about the pleasure. And so Bhagavan says, this imagination about the sense pleasure is what makes us attached to them. And there are 8 steps of fall which are given, which is called as the ladder of fall in the 2nd chapter of the Gita. The first step in that is thinking of the sense pleasures, imagining happiness in them. Dhyayato vishayan pumsaha sangasteshu upajayate. Imagining sense pleasures, enjoyment in this person, that object, that place, this thing, mind starts fancifully imagining. And then it gets attached. That is how raga is created. When raga will be created, the opposite of it, dvesha, also will be there in our mind. Something which I really fancy, there will be something else which I don't like. So strong likes and dislikes when we create, that is called as raga and dvesha. And both of them will disturb the mind. Whatever I am attached to, the mind will just keep wanting that more and more and more and imagine so much, it will definitely get disappointed at some point. And what I don't like, it will hate, and that also preoccupies the mind. Both of them disturb the peace. So vairagya is not to entertain those fanciful imaginations. And when will that happen? When I have seen through them very clearly. That yes, there are these enjoyments in the world, there are so many things available, I have enjoyed also. But I have reflected very clearly that, is that what I really need? My demand is for permanent happiness, and the world will give me only temporary happiness. So the world is not adequate enough to fulfill my demand. Hence, I am not running behind it. That healthy attitude of not running behind the world with a slavish dependence is called as vairagya. It is not shunning away, it is not rejecting, it is not negatively criticizing. That will only temporarily create some distaste in the mind. But vairagya is based on vivek, discrimination. That what do I really need? I have seen so many pleasures in my life. Do I need the pleasures or do I need happiness? Temporary pleasure comes and goes. But happiness is what I really seek. First day we saw, peace is what everybody seeks. But we don't know that that is what we seek. And unfortunately, even if I know it, I think that it is outside. A very famous story all of us know. There was one day one old lady, she was searching something on the ground. So one or two people came there and they asked her, Amma, what are you doing? She said, my needle has fallen down, so I am searching. So they also started helping, searching. 4 or 5 people more came, they also started helping. After 20 minutes, one of them asked this old lady, Amma, you have dropped your needle and we all are searching, but we are not able to find it. Can you please tell me, where did you drop? Said, oh, that needle I dropped inside, in the tent. So then why are you searching here? Because there is no light inside the tent. So I am searching outside. Now that story we all know. But is that not what we are doing? Seeking peace which we need, permanent happiness which we need, in things which are temporary, which are impermanent. Logically we may even know that, but we are not convinced of that. We are not convinced that that is my demand, that I need only permanent happiness, nothing else will satisfy me. So when we understand that very clearly, then that hankering after pleasure will stop. So Vairagya comes by Vivek, that what do I really seek and where will I get it from? 3 simple questions one has to ask oneself in life. Very, very fundamental questions. What do I really seek in life? From where will I get it? And how will I get it? If I think that I am seeking promotion, I am seeking job, I am seeking love, I am seeking this, I am seeking that, that is all a means. What I am really seeking is permanent happiness. Because after getting all those, I will become happy. So we seek everything else for happiness, but we don't seek happiness for anything else. We seek happiness only for itself. That's why it is the Param Lakshya. It is the goal of life, permanent happiness. So when I seek permanent happiness, the impermanent things cannot give. And yet I am fascinated by the impermanent things, attached to the impermanent things. To detach it from there, that Vivek has to be applied, which we call as Nitya Anitya Vivek, that what is eternal and what is ephemeral. That is one type of Vivek. Other type of Vivek is Sukha and Dukkha Vivek. That where is Sukha? Is it there outside? So if I see the pain of pleasure and I see the pleasure of pain, my mind will change. Think about it. I have to see the pain of pleasure. That what is the price that I pay for this temporary pleasure? How much of stress, how much of anxiety, how much of chasing, how much of dependence, how much of energy drainage, and ultimately what do I get? Few moments of fleeting pleasure, and again the mind is craving for something else. And how long will this go on? This is called dosha drishti, that you see the limitation of this. So if you see the limitation of this, books like Bhaj Govindam, Vairagya Shatakam, all these help us to cultivate that healthy sense of detachment or dispassion. So the mind will not run behind it with such a craving. When I have seen clearly that yes, this is there, it will give me some pleasure, but I am not so thrilled and excited, forgetting what I really need. I may enjoy it also, but there is no such dependence on it. So dosha drishti. And one more step, if you want to have intense vairagya, then dukkha drishti. Look at the amount of dukkha that it is there. In fact, Buddha said, all pleasure is nothing but pain in disguise. Think about it. You may say, Swamiji, this is all nice for you, that is why you have become Swamiji, but we don't want to become Swamiji. We want pleasure in life. It's so negative to think that all pleasure is pain in disguise. So what? So next time when I am eating that nice, what is that? Faluda ice cream. It is so pleasurable, it's so enjoyable. How could you say that it is pain in disguise? You ask the body and you ask the doctor, they will tell you. White sugar, milk, so many things which are there in that. They harm the body. No, what about some nice sattvic pleasures which we are entertaining? Any pleasure is pain in disguise. Only means that it cannot give me the permanent happiness, and the amount of energy that it takes, actually it is pain, and it leaves a craving. At that moment it is pleasurable, enjoyable, but before that and after that, the mind is left in the lurch. Think about it, if actually the pleasure was so satisfying, we would not seek anything else, because we would have got what we wanted. But it gives only sense tickling. And temporarily the mind becomes quiet, so we feel, so nice. Actually it came because of a quiet mind, the peace, that happiness. It appears that that pleasure came from the external thing. Yes, the pleasure came from the external thing, but the happiness didn't come from there. That Vivek one who does, that what is the dosha, what is the limitation of this, and what is the dukkha? How much dependence does it create? So many times we compromise with our values just because of the pleasures. And what is the biggest price that I pay for the pleasure? I forget my own nature. That is the price that I pay for sense pleasure, which is so temporary. For things which are temporary, I have forgotten that which is permanent. That is the biggest price. That's why it is a pain. Not only that, if you actually think about it, Bhagavan Krishna says in the Gita, Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadhi Dukkha Doshanu Darshanam. This Vairagya comes from this. Dukkha Drishti, Dosha Drishti. And what do you have to find? If you reflect very carefully, there is so much of pain in birth, Janma. Pain in death, Mrityu, Jara, old age. Vyadhi. That short life that we have is filled with so much of disease, so much of abhiman, so much of pride. And we go through so many things in life, all because of hankering behind pleasures. When the child is born, everybody is so thrilled. Shankaracharya ji has written one whole composition called Shiva Aparadha Kshamapana Stotram. And in that he says that, O Lord, please forgive me that I did not think of you throughout my life. When I was in the womb, Adav Karma Prasangat Kalayati Kalusham Matra Kukshav Sthitam Mam. Because of some karma, I came into the womb of my mother, and there, what was my condition? In so much of pain I was, hanging upside down in that womb, such a small place. Now even 3-bedroom flat is less for me. Where was I at that time? In that such a small womb, hanging upside down. AC is not there today, I feel suffocated. What was there that time? There was no cross ventilation also in that side in the womb. No light, complete darkness, surrounded by all dirty, fecal matter. It was like being in a molting cauldron. So hot. And in that place I was there not for 1 day, 2 days, for 9 months I was getting cooked inside that. So he says, the baby, when the baby cries, when the baby comes out, you know why the baby cries? Medical doctors will say that, because the first time the baby is taking its own breath. So if the baby doesn't cry, the doctor will tap the baby. The cry has to come. Then the air goes inside and the lungs start functioning. So Shankaracharya says that the baby cries because the baby says, ki alas, in that womb I was, and I was suffocating, suffering so much, and I decided that next time I don't want to come back into the womb. So Bhagavan, I am sorry, I have forgotten you in my earlier lives, but this life I will definitely think about you. And when the baby comes out, the winds of Maya touch the baby, and the baby cries that, alas, now I will forget you. You just think about it. Do you want to come back into the womb? We have a human life, a glorious opportunity to dive within, to know our own true self, be established in that permanent happiness, and liberate oneself from birth and death. That opportunity we spend in just some temporary pleasures, running after it here and there, and fill the mind with more and more craving, for which I have to again take a birth. And our Puja Guruji says that if this doesn't inspire you, doesn't matter. He says, I am seeking moksha for a very, very valid and important reason. He said, I don't want to come back again into birth and death because I don't want to go to school. 20 years again, you think about it, I have to go through the school. Earlier, the children used to have such nice time and they used to go to school only by what? 4 years, 5 years. Now 6 months the fellow is put into one creche, one daycare center. From there his training starts. So think Janma, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadhi, Dukkha, Doshanu, Darshanam. That what is this human life? How much am I running behind the pleasures? When I do that Vivek, slowly the mind learns to calm down. That Vairagya will give that strength to the mind that what I really seek is my nature. Why should I depend on anything outside? There is nothing outside there. Temporary pleasure, yes, but what I really demand, it is not there. So when there is nothing which can satisfy me from there, why will I run behind it? There was one boy who asked Gurudev, Swami Chinmayananji, that Swamiji, you were a journalist with one of the leading newspapers. You have done law, you have done your English literature, and you are so highly qualified, and you had such a successful career. Yet why did you leave all that and become a Swami? He was a youngster who was sitting in front of him and he was asking him. So Gurudev looked at him and he was chewing bubble gum. So Gurudev looked at him and he said, when will you spit that gum? He said, when there is no juice in it, I will spit it. He said, I chewed the world enough. There is no rasa in it. I spat it out. What is there? He went into the elite circle of Delhi. He was a freedom fighter. And after that freedom we got, then he used to work for National Herald. And he saw that whole life of what is it to be in the elite circle, what it is to enjoy, what it is to have that kind of status and all that. When he saw the life is so hollow, dropped it. It took some time. He went to Swami Shivananji, slowly the satsang, and he went as an atheist actually. He went there to expose the sadhus and sannyasis whom he called in his language as social parasites and leech upon the society, who are absolutely unproductive. He went there to expose the myth of the Himalayan sadhus. And when he saw what kind of life they live, the amount of service they do, the depth of the knowledge of Vedanta, he was transformed. So when we see very clearly what is the limitation, we may still enjoy, but we have no hankering of pleasure. That is a very, very important state of mind. To contemplate steadily on the truth. Tomorrow we will see about that peace of self, that how peace is my true nature, not just the nature of my mind. That Atma Shanti is my nature. To experience that, my mind must be available. And that mind today is not available because it is running outside. Hence, Vairagya based on Vivek is a very important aspect for a Vedantic student, that can I cultivate this Vairagya? As a householder, what should I do? I can't leave everything, and I don't need to leave everything. If I have that healthy attitude towards the sense pleasures, towards the enjoyments in the world, that if they are there, I enjoy it. If they are not there, I don't run after it. That we call in our culture as wow, with or without. If today evening when you go back home, there is a nice dessert, you say wow. If there is no dessert, you say wow. If Bengan ka bharta comes in front of your in the plate, you still say wow and you eat. If your spouse smilingly gives you the food, you say wow. If she gives you the food with a grumpy face, you still say wow. No dependence at every point in time. That way, if I can live that with this or without this, I am still happy. That is the state of dispassion. Then the mind will not run after pleasures, mind will not have the memories, mind will not have desires, fanciful imaginations. That mind doesn't get attached. In our culture, the whole concept of vrata, upvas, and this, in Gujarati we call it as badha. 1 year you take one sankalpa that I will not eat this or I will not do this. Because you are attached to that, then you detach from it. So there should not be any dependence in life. Any dependence is there, it will create misery and sorrow. There's a nice line in the scriptures which says that sarvam paravasham dukkham atmavasham eva sukham. Any dependency will lead to sorrow only. We are talking about psychological dependency, which I create in my mind, that I plus ice cream is equal to pleasure. I plus this person is equal to love. I plus this car is equal to status. I plus this money is equal to prosperity. That I plus whatever I need, that is my dependency. And without this, I feel incomplete. Vedanta says you remove all those psychological dependencies. Then what will you get? It is not that I plus object is equal to happiness. You remove the psychological dependency, you get I is equal to happiness. Hence, detachment is very, very important. Vairagya is very important for everybody. That there should be nothing which can control my happiness. That is called Vairagya. And that key of my happiness remains with me. I don't give it to anybody else. We are so careful, ना घर की चाबी किसी को नहीं देना है. But हमारी खुशी की चाबी सबके पास है. Anybody can control my happiness. So how do I ensure that that doesn't happen? Remove all the attachments. Whatever I'm attached to, I should get detached from that. For which, if I have to deny myself for some time, I have to deny. That doesn't matter. Merely by denial, it will not go. Please remember, there are enough people who do that. Swamiji, I'm very attached to chocolate. So I've decided now, I need to lose weight. I'm going to give up chocolate. For 1 full year, no chocolate. So externally, they have stopped all chocolate. And every time they meet me, they will say, Swamiji, you know I have given up chocolate. I don't eat chocolate. And as they come closer and closer to that date, they say, just 1 more month. 1 more month. 10 more days. Mentally, I am thinking of chocolate all the time. So just by denial, it will not go. But yes, by denial, I am creating an opportunity for my mind to detach from that lower and attach to something higher. So if I do that, I have a higher purpose for which I am living in self-control, then my self-control will be meaningful. And also, I will see for myself during that 1 year that how that dependency on chocolate, when I have dropped it, I feel so free, I feel so good. I don't have hankering behind it. My mind is so free after that. I am giving you a simple example of chocolate. There are so many things that we are attached to. Certain ways of living, certain ways of thinking. We are attached to all those. One has to deny, one has to hold on to something higher, and one has to see the beauty of living that higher way of life. And the freedom from that pain which we would have gone through otherwise, because of the lower way of life. When I see that, that is called Sukha Dukha Vivek. The pleasure of pain, when I see that how enjoyable it is that I am putting this effort. If I am attached to sleep and I get up early in the morning and go for a nice walk on the Juhu beach, and so beautiful it is. That beauty of that, and the pain what I would have gone through if I was sleeping till late, My mind would have pulled me down saying, what a weakling you are. You try every day to get up, but you can't get up. Nothing is possible by you. My own mind will insult me. So if I see the pain of the pleasure of sleeping little more, and if I see the pleasure of the pain that somehow I get up, even if I'm sleepy, I still take the effort, go out and do the jogging. That is called Sukha Dukha Vivek. That will help us to have healthy detachment. That mind will be at peace. So Vairagya is that very healthy state where absence of hankering is there for pleasures. Second meaning of Vairagya is also the Raga and Dvesha becomes neutralized. Attachment we spoke about, that it comes because of my false equations in my own mind. And I start imagining pleasure. So the concept of Vrat, Ekadashi Vrat or Upvas is all to help us to cultivate that healthy sense of self-control and detachment. Raga we can control that way. Dvesha, how will we control? Dvesha disturbs the mind. I don't like this, I don't like that person, this person I hate. That disturbs the mind. That's why we have so many festivals in our culture. Many of these festivals are to give up our dvesh. Give up all the dvesh. Holi will come now. Give up all the dvesh in the mutual love. Everyone comes together, unites. Forget whatever dvesha you have. Forgive. Drop it. Nothing is more important than love in our life. And when there is dvesh, it is burning. Dvi-vish, it is double poison. It spoils my own peace of mind. Makes me disturbed, agitated. The person whom I am hating may not even be aware of that. So I forgive, I let go. No, Swamiji, this letting go is a very big thing. Why should I let go? And if a person goes on doing the same thing again and again, then why should I let go? Okay, don't let go, suffer. See what we learn in Mahabharata. How many times have the Pandavas been wronged? How many times they have been attacked? How many times they have been subjected to such adharma? When they don't even deserve it. They have not even done anything of that. Yet they are being subjected to all that. But no dvesha in their mind. Even the war which has to be fought is not fought out of raga and dvesh. Pandavas are ready to say that, okay, one house also is enough for us, doesn't matter, you keep the kingdom. For the sake of peace, even that settlement they are ready to. So from inside, let there be forgiveness for our happiness, for my peace of mind. Because if dvesha is there, it will occupy my mind. I can't focus on the higher. So I forgive not for the other person. I forgive for my happiness. And how long to forgive? I mean, you have to know the choice, but to let go for your peace of mind. Externally, what I have to do, I have to do. I may have to go and tell the person, I may have to even take some action, I may have to even, if required, cut off or become indifferent. There are different things that one has to do externally. But no point in holding a dvesh inside. Dislike, strong dislike inside. Because that disturbs me. So what our culture says, forgive and let go. And the beauty of the Mahabharata is this, that from inside you forgive, but if it comes to that, and you have to fight, outside you may even have to fight, but not out of dvesh. So it is not that forgiveness is some weakness. Arey chalo, I forgive. It is not the quality of the weak. Forgiveness is the quality of the strong people. It's like a burning charcoal. If that burning charcoal is put on the sand, what will happen? It will get put off. But if that burning charcoal is put in charcoal, then again it will catch more fire. So two minds which are full of dvesha, when they are constantly interacting, it will only create more fire, more disturbance. One of them will have to let go. Not for anybody else, but for oneself only. So dvesh goes by karuna, compassion, kshama, forgiveness. The first quality of a devotee who has known the truth or has become one with the Lord, in the 12th chapter Bhagavan says, Adveshta sarva bhutanam maitra karuna evacha. That you be friendly to people, don't have dvesh. And if somebody has harmed you and you can't be friendly to them, have karuna for them, have pity or compassion for them, saying, let it be, this person has acted in some insecurity, may Bhagavan take care of their insecurity. And you forgive and cleanse your heart. Ultimately that is what we will have to do. Is it not true? After suffering in that dvesha for 10 years, what do we do ultimately, finally? Chalo, let us come to terms with it. So 10 years unnecessarily I suffered, and finally I say, okay, now I let go. So why don't I do that before? Externally, if it is my purview of my duty and I have to take some action, I do. But from inside, I don't. So dvesh goes when I really value peace. We have to ask ourselves that, do I really value peace in life? Or do I value ego boosting? That I am right, that person is wrong. Many times the question is, we are not able to forgive, not because of anything, because I want to prove that person wrong. That person was wrong, that person must admit defeat, that person must apologize, that person must change, then only I will let go. Then I continue to suffer. So if I learn that fact that internally let me let go, externally what I have to do, let me do as a part of my duty. I don't have to boil from within. So if I really value peace, I will visualize peace, I will visualize happiness and harmony. Dvesha makes us visualize anger, makes us visualize insulting the opposite person, makes us again and again remember what had happened and feel more and more bad about it. So those memories will come up. That destroys the peace. So both raga and dvesha are strong enemies of peace. Raga will pull us towards our object of attachment. Dvesha will pull us towards a hurtful memory. And both these will destroy the peace. Hence Bhagavan says, Tayor vasham na agachet. Don't come under the sway of raga and dvesha. Remembering the name of the Lord, valuing and visualizing peace. When we are so filled with anger, if you actually shift your visualization and send compassionate thoughts, forgiving that opposite person, you see the state of mind after that. It will be very calm and peaceful. You will be free then and there. Rather than visualizing anger and next time I meet this person, this is what I will do and this they should not have done and all that. Too much of emotional drama it will be. And our mind will get dissipated. So raga and dvesha both need to be dropped. And that will help the mind to attain certain peace. So vairagya, we have seen two aspects. One is absence of hankering for pleasure. And second is rising above strong likes and dislikes. To rise above strong likes and dislikes, let me value peace. Let me stay focused on my duty, as we saw yesterday. Let me live in that self-control. Let me have compassion, forgiveness in my heart. Lord Ram, when he returned from the forest, do you know whom did he meet first? First he went and met Manthara. First. And Manthara was terrified, scared to death almost. Okay, now Ram has come, now he is going to become the king, and now he is going to punish me. Ram went there, no dvesh in his heart. Went and hugged her. She was crying. She said, I am so sorry I did this to you. And he said, it's okay. I understand. Everybody goes through phases. He did not have any dvesha. 14 years he spent in the forest. If he had dvesha for mantra, he would have cursed mantra every minute. If you see Valmiki Ramayana, there Ram is shown as a human being, not as a god. Many people think that Swamiji, this is very easy for Ram to practice because he was Bhagwan. That is because in Tulsi Ramayana he is portrayed as Bhagwan. In Valmiki Ramayana, Ram is human because the purpose of his avatar is to show to human beings that how to live dharma as a human being. So when he goes away into the forest, Sumantra also leaves him finally, and quietly in the night he goes away, leaving Sumantra behind, and he goes to Chitrakoot. There they have built the hut and all, and they are staying there. Ram weeps inconsolably, he weeps there. And he literally breaks down in front of Sita and Lakshman, and he says, what have I done to deserve this? If Kaikeyi wanted her son to be the king, she should have just told me and I would have given her the kingdom very gladly. What have I done to deserve this 14 years in the forest? He goes to the human emotion of pain, of having that feeling that I have been wronged, injustice has been done to me, and why did all this happen to me? And yet, when Bharat, Kaikeyi and everybody come there to call him back, he has no dvesha towards Kaikeyi. In fact, he goes first to Kaikeyi and bows down to her, even before he goes to Kaushalya. So he also goes through all the human emotions. But he doesn't allow that to deter him from dharma. That's the beauty of Valmiki Ramayana. If you read Valmiki Ramayana, your reverence for Ram will go up like this. As a human, how he lived dharma. So easy, na? Imagine if you are given the choice, what will you do at that time? One hand you have 14 years of exile in the forest, living as a mendicant, living in the Valkal Vastra and not even having footwear or anything, living an absolutely difficult life amidst all the wild animals and all that, and the palace, kingdom, pleasure, enjoyment. And the whole kingdom wants, and yet Ram says no. Why? Because that is the role he plays there as the son. That I have given the vachan to my father and I have to follow that. At this moment, I am not the prince and I don't need to come back to Ayodhya. So steadfast in dharma. So one who understands this very clearly, that dvesha, let me give up, let me be peaceful, let me be happy. That person attains peace. So this is the clarity that we need, that let there be vairagya in our life, let there be absence of hankering after pleasure, let there be healthy detachment, and let there be freedom from likes and dislikes. So today that is where we stop.